Hi everyone, my name is Korre Johnson. I work on the social media team here at Children's Hospital of Wisconsin. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm joined by Kathy Smith from the Wisconsin Poison Center, and today we're going to have a conversation about poisoning risks for kids under the age of 5. And so for those of you on Periscope, please go ahead and type in a question and submit your question to us if you have a question. Otherwise, we're going to have a conversation today to talk about some of the risks that kids under 5 face in the home and around as it relates to poisonings. So I'm really glad that Kathy was able to join us today. So Kathy, can you tell us, what is your role in Wisconsin Poison Center?
My title is the program coordinator, but I do a little bit of everything. I am a certified specialist in poison information, so I've been on the phones, I've taken the exam, I do some programming, but I'm also the outreach educator, so I do a lot of talking in the community about how poison prevention works and things that you can do to keep your children and your loved ones safe.
Great. And can you tell us a little bit about the Wisconsin Poison Center and how that relates to maybe other poison centers across the country?
You bet. The Wisconsin Poison Center is located at Children's Hospital of Wisconsin, but we actually take calls from people of all ages. We talk primarily to parents with small children, but we also deal with elderly people, so people can call us about anything. We run 24/7, so we have people answering the phone 24 hours a day. 2/3 of our calls are from the public, but we also get a lot of calls from physicians and nurses in emergency departments. And the 800 number that people can call if they have a question or an emergency is 1-800-222-1222.
Now that's the same number across the entire country, right?
That's right. People who live in Wisconsin, if you dial that number in the state of Wisconsin, it will ring at the Wisconsin Poison Center. But if you call from California or you call from another state, you will actually get the Poison Center for that state. So that's a great number to remember. It's good all over the United States.
Good. And so you mentioned that you're receiving calls at the Poison Center for not only kids, but also adults, right?
Correct.
And so since I work at Children's Hospital of Wisconsin, we're going to have a conversation today about kids.
Okay.
What percentage would you say of the calls that come in are focused on kids versus adults? Is there a way to know that, or?
We do have statistics, and I would say that about 75% of our cases involve children, but that includes everybody under the age of 19. So if we're talking about the little toddlers between 1 and 5 years old, it's probably more like half of that. I would say probably about 35% of our cases. And fortunately, the smaller children are usually discovered pretty quickly by their care providers, their mom or grandpa, and so those people will call us right away, and generally those cases are minimally toxic.
Okay. And so when we look at kids ages, from a newborn child all the way up to age 5, what are some of the top causes of poisonings that you're seeing?
Well, if you think about children, when they start to become mobile, they're going to be getting around the age of a year to 18 months. They're starting to climb. And so what they will do is they'll put things in their mouths. That's how they discover their environment. So it's a time when parents really have to be aware of what's on the countertop, what's on the coffee table, because children will find items in mom's purse, open those containers and put whatever is available to them in their mouths. The kinds of things that children will get into are going to be things that are available to them in their environment. That can be medications, it can be houseplants, it can be household products. Anything that's available to them goes in their mouths. So we have to be aware. Things that we don't normally think about as being poisonous. Houseplants being a good example of that. Right now it's the middle of winter. Children aren't going outside, but you have to be aware of the things inside your home that could be a problem for children.
And I have 2 small children at home. I have a 1.5-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old. And one of the things that's challenging for me and my wife is just understanding some of the child medications, like the baby Tylenol or the infant Tylenol, the dosage. I mean, do you get a lot of calls from parents who
We do. And throughout the country, poison centers get a lot of those kinds of calls. What happens is a parent will want to give a child some infant drops for acetaminophen, whether it's Tylenol or another brand name. But you have to read the instructions carefully because the infant drops might be different than the liquid formulation. And the amount that you give for those children is going to be different. If you have a cough cold product, There might be a pain medication in the cough cold product as well. So you have to read the instructions carefully. Make sure you use the measuring device that is provided by that container, and don't use a measuring device for another product on this product, because it might mean that you're going to be measuring incorrectly.
And what about vitamins? Is that something that parents should be concerned about?
Vitamins are something that people don't normally think about as being an issue, but if the vitamin has an iron supplement included in it, the iron supplement can actually be life-threatening. So children like gummy vitamins because they're easy to take, but then they look like candy, and children will be easily confused. And one thing we tell parents is never call medication candy. You want the child to take it, so sometimes a well-meaning parent will say, oh, it's candy. But then if you tell them it's candy, when your back is turned, they're going to want to go and get some more candy. Vitamins are a good example of that. So you tell them that it is medicine and that you only want them to take one, and that there's a reason for that, that if you otherwise take too much, it could hurt you. And if you do discover that your child has taken too many vitamins, please call the Poison Center and work through that situation with us.
Good advice. One story I've seen in the media a lot over the last year or so are these laundry pods, right? These highly concentrated pods that folks use to clean clothes. How much of a concern should that be?
Laundry pods can be deadly.
Really?
And people don't realize that. They think it's just something that you use to wash your clothes, so how serious can it be? But the difference between a laundry pod and liquid laundry detergent is that the laundry packet, is under incredible pressure. And it's developed and designed so that the slightest bit of moisture will cause that packet to explode. And if a child gets that in their mouth, the saliva from inside their mouth will cause that packet to open very, very forcefully, forcing the detergent down their throat. It can cause them to gag and choke and cough and force that detergent into their lungs. And that's a situation where it becomes very serious. If a child would ever get into a laundry packet, parents or care providers should call us immediately to assess and evaluate if it's a serious situation that needs that mandates that they go to an emergency department immediately. There have been deaths, not in Wisconsin, but in other parts of the country. So it is something that's a serious threat.
That's really good advice. Thank you. And for everybody just joining us on Periscope, I'm having an interview with Kathy Smith, who works in the Wisconsin Poison Center, and we're taking a few minutes today to talk about some of the poisoning risks that kids ages 5 and under face in the home. So I wonder if some of the calls that we receive at the Poison Center vary throughout the year. Like in the wintertime, are there different sets of risks than in the summertime? And can you talk about that?
It's true. We have certain seasonal poisonings. There are some things that occur throughout the year. If it's a pain medicine, people use that. Cough, cold medications, they'll use that throughout the year. But right now, we're in the middle of winter, and there's sidewalk salt that people use to melt the ice and snow on their sidewalks. And if you leave a bag of that sitting by the door or somewhere where it's handy, it means a child might have access to that. So that's something you want to be careful about. End of the year holidays can provide opportunities for having things out. Could be candles, could be liquid air fresheners, could be large amounts of food. So there are seasonal poisonings that our staff at the Poison Center are very well informed about, and so you should never hesitate to call us regardless of the season and what is available to the children, whether it's a car product, whatever it is. During the summer there are seasonal poisonings because the kids are outside, and the flowers are blooming and the berries are developing on the vines. Sometimes parents don't even know the names of the plants growing around their homes or apartment complexes, and a child has a fistful of berries in their hands, and before you know it, mom realizes that the child's been munching on something. Or it might be mushrooms growing in the lawn after a heavy rain. So anytime that something like that occurs, parents should be encouraged to call the Poison Center and just check it out. I know that with parents that are young like you, Korre, the activity might be to look it up online.
Right.
Look at something on the computer to find out if it's
So
poisonous or not.
When would it be okay for me to look online, or should you always be very cautious of what we find online? Talk about how.
I think the behavior, it's natural. I think
Right.
we all look things up online to find out
Right.
more information.
Mhm.
But the reason it's important to call the poison center instead is, let's say that your little one gets into something and they have a pre-existing medical condition, or they take medication every day for a seizure disorder or a heart problem.
Mhm.
That is something that if you're looking online, you may not realize that those are considerations that might cause your little one, your child, to be more at risk for swallowing something than another child would. So there are underlying circumstances that we will ask you about at the Poison Center that might be important when considering, well, do I need to do something for my child, or is this going to be something I don't have to worry about?
You mentioned about when you make that phone call into the Poison Center, who are the folks answering that call, and how do they know the answer to these questions?
That's a really good question. The people that answer the phones at the Poison Center are nurses and pharmacists who have been specifically trained in toxicology. They go through 12 weeks of training. That's like being the toughest course you took in college. And then we have physician toxicologists that are available to our staff 24/7. So if we get a question from a parent or a physician that we're not equipped to answer, we can call our physician toxicologist to help us out to figure out what to do in that situation.
And how will I know when to call, for example, 911 versus calling the Poison Center? Because I mean, we're so used to hearing that number, right? And should I take pause and think about what number I'm calling first?
That's a great question, and that's another behavior that we're taught. You know, if you have an emergency, call 911. If you're not sure, take the time to call the Poison Center, because even if it's an emergency, we will know and have the expertise to ask the right questions to figure that out. If you do call 911, no worries. The 911 dispatcher will give you the number of the Poison Center and tell you to call us directly. But because we're trained to evaluate quickly whether or not it's a serious situation, it's better to just not take the time to call 911 and call 1-800-222-1222.
Great advice again. And what recommendations would you have for a parent who has small kids around the house? Are there some easy things we can do? Because we know accidents are going to happen, right?
Exactly.
But there's some things we can do to prepare.
Absolutely. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right?
Right.
So the kinds of things that we recommend to parents of small children is, if you need to take a medication, don't do it in front of your children. Children are so smart. They'll watch the way you open that container. They'll watch where you put the container, and then they'll go after it when you're not in the room. So if you're taking a medicine, do it when the child is in another room and distracted. If you have to give it to the child, put it in the measuring device first. Don't let them see how to open the container or where you get it from. And better still, when you're done with the container, or if you're not using the medication, put it up and out of reach, out of a child's view, so they're not tempted to go after it when you're not there. Make sure you leave products in the original container. Sometimes you get a laundry detergent or a car product in a large container, and you want to put it in a smaller container because there's just a little bit left. But then when you call the Poison Center to tell us your child got into something, you don't have the label, you can't tell us the ingredients, and that information is extremely important to us to try to evaluate if the child is at risk or not. So leave the product in the original container. Call us right away when you discover something happened. Sometimes people think, well, I'll wait to see if the child is going to get sick, and then I'll call. But it's better for us if we can talk through the situation when you discover it. And if you don't know how much a child got, you don't know exactly what they got into, it's okay. We can deal with that. Just call us as soon as you can.
And parents are busy. Sometimes we have daycare, we have babysitters, we're leaving our kids with grandma and grandpa. we need to make sure that everybody who cares for our kids understands when to call the Poison Center, right?
Absolutely.
And how do we do that? I mean, what's the best way? We just got to leave the number with every other emergency contact number we have, right?
It's a great way to do it.
Yeah.
If you'd like tips or materials, a magnet so that you've got the number, we can provide that to you. You can go to www.wisconsinpoison.org to order materials. But the best way to do it is to put the number for the Poison Center right in your cell phone or
Yeah.
your communication device.
Mhm.
If you've got that number listed, you can call us right away. If you want additional ideas, please don't hesitate to order our materials online.
Well, thank you so much, Kathy. I really appreciate it.
You
Again,
bet.
If anybody has any questions about the Wisconsin Poison Center, you can go online to, what's the URL again?
It's www.wisconsinpoison.org and the number 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 1-800-222-1222.
Thank you so much, Kathy.
You bet.